SNL with Benedict Cumberbatch is over, but we're just getting started here on our Saturday Night Live post-show recap. And now here are the two guys with pre-orders in for Reverse Toilets. I'm Rob Sestrino. Here is Rich Tackenberg. Rich, how are you?
Good, although speaking of backorder, my David S. Pumpkins Halloween costume did not get here in time, so I did not get to do that. So maybe my toilet will get here sooner than that.
Yes. Is it true that you are sitting currently on a reverse toilet?
Do I look cool? That's all you have to know.
Yeah. Yes. All right. Did you really order a David S. Pumpkins suit?
No, but as we joked about on Twitter, there were places selling the David S. Pumpkin suit. What I wondered is, did they actually create it, or was that a costume that someone at SNL saw online and thought, oh, there's something here, ordered it, and then that company renamed it the David S. Pumpkin suit? I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's probably the latter, because I ran into somebody who had a very similar suit when I was in New York, and they were adamant that they said, I know I did not buy this because of David S. Pumpkins. I bought this with Halloween coming up, and now everybody's coming into me, are you David Pumpkins? I said, well, you got to roll with it now. Now you got to go with it.
Oh, yeah. That's fantastic. You pull that off. That's great.
Yeah. All right. Well, Rich, very excited to talk about Cumberbatch and Solange. No James Keese this week, but we will have a recorded entry from him later on to talk about the music of Solange. So we will get to that later on in the show. Of course, if you want to subscribe to our SNL post-show recap, you could do so in the iTunes store, postshowrecaps.com/SNL iTunes. And it's a great time to subscribe because we got some big news about next week's show. Rich, Dave Chappelle is hosting next week's episode with musical guest A Tribe Called Quest.
Oh, can't wait. That's gonna be very interesting. That'll be a great week.
What is the reason for Dave Chappelle suddenly hosting SNL? Does he have a project coming up, or it's just like this would be cool?
You know what? That's a good question. I don't know of any big project that he's got coming up. I'm trying to remember if he had something on Netflix, a stand-up special or something that I don't remember. We'll have to look. But Dave Chappelle these days doesn't seem to do anything based on business. It's sort of what interests him and what amuses him. So we'll see.
Should be a fun show next week, but interesting show to talk about from last night. Cumberbatch hosting the show for the first time. Rich, I know you were pumped up. Did last night's show live up to your expectations?
You know, if I had been a Cleveland Indians fan, I would have been excited to see them in the World Series. But I don't know that I would say by the end of the World Series, I would have that same level of enthusiasm I had started.
Okay.
So, with every winner, there must be a loser. And I still love SNL. I still love the show. But, if we look at our season, some episode has to be the worst. That's just math. I think we found our bottom. And from here, we will rebuild.
Okay. Well, I enjoyed it for the most part. That it'll be fun to talk through what was working and not working. All right. So let's start off with, again, we go back to Hillary and Trump once again in the cold open for the 5th time this season, and now here we are getting ready to almost the eve of the election. Tuesday is the big election, and just one more sort of like a cable news setup. Erin Burnett checking in with Hillary and Trump.
Yeah, I thought this was fun. I mean, I think what we're seeing here, which I think we alluded to even on our last episode, is now that we're used to the Donald Trump impression, and again, 4 stars to, Alec Baldwin at every at bat, yet I think that Hillary Clinton was more fun. I think that, Trump is so crazy just, always, that it's hard to sort of parody. But I loved the Hillary getting so frustrated when no matter what Trump was doing, kissing the FBI, kissing Putin, that it's like, well, that we can't talk about that. We don't know what that means. Let's talk more about your emails. Her continued growing exasperation, I think for me was the absolute standout of this cold open.
Rich, would you say that this was sort of to bring up a classic SNL callback? Is this like shades of John Lovett's Michael Dukakis? I can't believe I'm losing to this guy.
Yes, I absolutely think so. I absolutely think so. So,
So
it was a fun, I think they sort of ran out of sort of where to go with it. I liked I thought it was very fun to see the two of them sort of break character and run around, Times Square in a pre-tape piece. I would put this in the classic category of more fun than funny. And I thought, oh, how much fun must it have been there to have been in Times Square when this was going on and playing along with all this and being part of it. But I don't know that there was anything memorable out of the pre-tape segment.
okay. Was there anything else that you wanted to touch on from the Trump and Hillary segment in the studio?
Well, the end, I was gonna say something. I don't know if you want to talk about the end when they got. Well, the one thing I would say, it was interesting for me because I'm pretty like I always would rather see them go big and miss than not go big enough. I did think it was interesting when Hillary is pleading for Mark Burnett to release a tape, and as she says in the old way of Wheel of Fortune, give me an N.
Yeah.
And I was like, ooh, that is. I don't know why. I mean, there's nothing about that should have bothered me between my own comedy taste, political leanings, belief that tape really does exist, and yet I don't know, maybe because the audience really kind of bristled at it. It was interesting that it kind of took me by shock a little bit.
Well, also the Alec Baldwin Trump did the same move that he did in the Access Hollywood rebuttal sketch, where then he is the person that says, "Oh yeah, those tapes exist," and then talks into the lapel microphone again, which is sort of a funny move and the callback to that.
Yeah, no, that was very funny. I thought that was really funny. Yeah, I would go ahead.
I was gonna say, and we get so much mileage out of the Beck Bennett Putin impression.
Yeah, that's sort of becoming a stock character for him. Who would have thought that? I thought, it's a nice that he's sort of pulling that off these days.
Mm-hmm.
I was talking, before the show, me and Mark were sort of texting about the episode, and yes, I don't know if I've mentioned that earlier. Should I have disclosed that him and I tweet every week to each other? Generally speaking, one of my least favorite SNL go-tos is getting a laugh by seeing a male kiss another male. That's so crazy that the joke is, look at this, two men kissing on TV. Although here it did not bother me because I thought, I love that they just sort of made it nonchalant, and then the joke here was not it's a man kissing a man. It's that it's that Trump is kissing someone, and yet the story still needs to be about the email and her frustration. So that was just really funny.
Right. That Aaron Burnett is like, I don't get what you're going for here. Why?
Yeah.
This is not a big deal.
That doesn't necessarily mean anything. We can't draw any conclusions from that. Yeah, exactly.
Did you feel like that SNL got too schmaltzy, Rich, with the last call to action for, we can't tell you who to vote for, but go out and vote on Tuesday?
Yeah, that was very unprecedented. That was kind of crazy. And again, not that, I disagree with them in any way. The wording I thought was very surprising because they didn't say, we're not going to tell you who to vote for. We're just going to encourage you to vote. They said, we can't tell you who to vote for. So they're just being really, really obvious about their political leanings on this one. Although, as many people would say, so it may not even be a political thing. It may just be keep the country from falling into 4 years of chaos, and it may be beyond Democrat versus Republican in their opinion, which happens to be mine. But I was very surprised that even Lorne Michaels, who has for 42 years, really been sort of emphatic about, we are not political. We make fun of institutions. We make fun of power. Democrat, Republican, conservatives, liberals, we are not a political show. And this was clearly a political nod. So very sort of, genre breaking for SNL. It may have seemed like a little moment to the casual viewer, but it definitely was not a little moment for people who know SNL history.
Yeah, I didn't like it, Rich. I thought that it was too much. I think that everybody knows it's important to vote, and I don't think that anybody is going to vote that wasn't going to vote because SNL told them to. And I thought it seemed too partisan.
It seemed a little, I mean, I know a lot of people will argue about whether or not that, it can be seen as a nonpartisan thing, but I agree. It seemed a little too political, and I don't see that, as you said, that Alec Baldwin and Cecily Strong asking people to vote is actually going to make a difference.
Okay. All right. So then we go into Cumberbatch and the monologue, and he ends up singing a song which is sort of like a little bit of a take on the Shaft theme song. So what do you think of the Cumberbatch theme as a self-proclaimed Cumberbitch? Were you into it?
I am a Cumberbitch, but I will say, this goes to my, oh man, actors love to sing on the monologue. They love, every actor and actress wants to show that they can sing, and this was no exception. I think this was fine. I don't know that I found it particularly funny. I thought it was fine. I thought he was very game. I thought, once again, the minute Leslie Jones comes out, I could pause, grab a sheet of paper and write out almost every, what the general gist of every joke is going to be, because it's just going to the Leslie Jones well for the 100th time. I thought it was fine, but I didn't. For me, it was not memorable.
Yeah, I thought my favorite part was bald Tilda Swinton coming out.
Yes, I did like when he asked how she got there, and she first starts explaining something about a portal from time or something, and then she says, "No, I took an Uber pool." I like comedically. She didn't even take an Uber; she took an Uber pool. I thought that was very cute.
Yeah, I'd like to see her show up more on SNL, but otherwise, not too much here in the monologue. So we have a commercial coming up after the monologue, shades of the Apple 1984 ad from the Super Bowl from the 80s. And we have the cool toilet, Rich.
Yeah, I mean this. This always made me think of. We talk about the Lorne Michaels line that Bill Hader talked about when he was doing a Vincent Price impression, which was, "Why now?" I don't understand. This is a commercial. This was very much a very shot for shot parody of the Apple commercial that was 32 years ago.
But iconic.
It is iconic, but it's 32 years ago, and it's not being used to parody something that is in itself of the moment. An Apple commercial about Donald Trump or about, something in today's world, about Snapchat or something, I can understand. But to do a 32-year late parody about toilets is not, it's not like there was some big breaking news about toilets. So I thought that, I thought it was fine. I thought that Benedict Cumberbatch's commitment to it really helped and really sold it. I thought their commitment to really sort of nailing the actual commercial itself was done well, but I just felt sort of lost in the time warp of, I don't know why I'm watching this right now.
Yeah, I actually really did like this one. I thought that, it was very, very good job by Cumberbatch to sell the cool toilet. I thought that he really did pull it off. I found myself saying, Rich, why don't they make this cool toilet?
I like that idea. I mean, it just, even for those of us using, using their devices on the toilet, that, having that right over the porcelain top, I was like, you know what, this seems pretty functional. I kind of like that. They had little foot pads for him. I thought that was good. Yeah. It was
very
nice.
Ergonomic. Do we know who might have written this sketch? Do you have that information?
No, I didn't see. I did look. I am going to guess that if I had to take a guess, I'm going to say it was Mikey Day based on his prominence in the video and a little bit of his style, I think. I'm imagining. I mean, as I said, it was well written for what it was. The Apple nerd in me, and I don't know how much we talk about this, I am an unabashed Apple fanboy. I watch the keynotes. I have a MacBook Air en route from China, or MacBook Pro en route from China to me now, for the new ones that they just released with the Touch Bar. So when they started an Apple thing, I thought, I wonder if they're going to make reference to something currently Apple, like it's a little bit inside baseball, but then to just see that it was a toilet, I thought was an odd one. So, okay, not unfunny, not unpleasant to watch. I like Benedict Cumberbatch lighting a match with style and panache. Right. I thought that was very nice. So yeah, it was all fun.
Okay. Let's talk about the game show parody. America's newest game show. Why is Benedict Cumberbatch hot, Rich? So in terms of the reveal of this, could you see where this was going at all?
Not necessarily. I mean, I had a hunch when Benedict Cumberbatch was up. I liked the way they rolled this out, especially when he, he self-identifies as Beck Bennett, and then it's Vanessa Bayer playing herself and A.D. Bryant. So I always like these kind of breaking fourth wall kinds of sketches, sort of a peek between the faux peek behind the scenes, reminiscent of the game show new SNL cast member or Arcade Fire, a member of Arcade Fire, which was maybe a better version of this. So yeah, I always like these things. I think it's fun to see, and I thought everyone in it was very good. The women were excellent. Beck Bennett was very funny. So I would say it was a very light, it was a very atmospheric. I don't know that there was a lot of density to the sketch, but very fun. I thought they did a nice job. I thought I would say this was probably my favorite sketch of the night. I think fair to say.
Wow, favorite of the night. You know what? Yeah, I guess so. I don't know where else you would necessarily go.
I will say the bar was kind of low, so I'm not saying it because of high praise. It's almost by default. I would say this was probably as good as we got.
Yeah. So, in terms of the actual game, I did not like how Beck Bennett had a card that said the title of the show.
Yeah.
And while you were waiting to try to figure out what this was, you could almost read what his card said.
Yes, I did notice that. I did know what it was. I think between A.D. and Benedict, I did actually read it. Yeah.
Yeah. I also thought Vanessa was outstanding in this scene. Like, I feel like that this is, again, like in her wheelhouse of something she's really good at.
Yeah, because Vanessa is really, I mean, a lot of people do well, and it's not easy. I mean, not that I can do it, just sort of playing at a level 10. What Vanessa does well is start in a very, start at a 1 and just so seamlessly get from 1 to 10 over the course of a monologue without it feeling, too forced. And her sort of just losing it, I thought was just really fun. I thought she did a really great job.
Yeah. Next week, are you ready for Am I Hotter Than Kyle Mooney?
Well, I was surprised that they didn't do next week Am I Hotter Than Dave Chappelle? I thought that would have been a nice little call out to sort of button the sketch with.
Yeah, that's what I thought. That's where they were going when they started that, Rich. But even a mention of Kyle Mooney, I feel like that he's been almost MIA this season.
Yeah, this was a tough episode for him. He got he got to kiss Alec Baldwin as a KKK member, and then have a small role in a caper sketch. But yeah, you're right. Not a lot of time. I mean, I think we really saw with Mikey Day and Alex Moffat coming on the show that people like him. I'll say it here because I wasn't sure where I'm going to say it. This was a Bobby free episode. Bobby's only appearance was on the stage at the end of the night to say goodnight, which was just heartbreaking to me. I mean, any sketch you can pepper in Bobby Moynihan to get a laugh. Certainly any of the post-update sketches where you kind of needed it, there should have been one. So a real bummer for me.
Yeah, it's crazy because I would say that, and I know we're a long way away from your season 42 superlatives, but I think that on the male side, I mean, would you say that Mikey Day as a rookie has probably been the most valuable player on the male side?
Oh, without a doubt. I mean, he really went for, and again, it's always a little different because he was a writer on the show for a few years, so he didn't come into the process cold. But yeah, I mean, he's getting, for a featured player to be getting more screen time in some episodes and as much screen time as established, other than maybe I would say Keenan is a little bit, he's probably still the elder statesman of the show that's getting the most screen time. But other than that, Mikey Day, he's sort of running the table right now. Good for him.
I mean, he's really on a historic screen time pace as an SNL rookie.
Yeah, I mean, and you know, you're seeing a lot of versatility out of him. It's interesting to see that much screen time for a cast member that is not doing an iconic impression or has not developed a very memorable character that people want to see over and over again. So as a utility player, you know, he's sort of getting the amount of screen time that a Phil Hartman would have gotten, which we have not seen in a long time.
Okay. The next sketch is the office hours sketch. Pete Davidson is a student who is getting some extra help from Professor Cumberbatch, who tries to kiss him and then continues on monologuing as Pete Davidson repeatedly gives very short answers. Okay.
Okay. Okay. I mean, I feel like Pete Davidson completely summed up how I felt about this sketch. It was like, okay. All right. Okay. Yeah. That's cool. Oh, whoa. Okay. Yeah. Taint. Taint. Yeah, I mean that you know, we saw this character in the Julie Louis-Dreyfus episode, the pool boy pre-tape piece, you know, playing Chad. I think that was a little bit more interesting to me because in that one there, you know, sort of the big potential moment between the two characters was to come. In this one, we start with it. We start with this almost kiss, and then we just see, you know, the character that Benedict Cumberbatch playing try to sort of wind it back and revealing pieces of information about himself, but it's not necessarily action. So,
Rich, you just blew my mind that this was a recurring character.
Oh, come on. Yeah, this is yeah. Okay. Yeah. So I thought this was exactly that. I thought this was okay.
Yeah, I did enjoy this. I thought that this was, you know, not as funny as the sketch from, was it the end of last season where we had the Goodwill Hunting type parody where I thought that's where we were going with something like that. But
yes.
No, yeah.
And again, how could you have made this sketch better? Added some Bobby Moynihan. It's not that hard. When in doubt, add Bobby to the mix. Come on, guys.
Yeah. So I thought this was fun. I liked all of the monologuing from Cumberbatch, but the Cartesian logic of it all. All right, so let's talk about the surprise party, Rich. And Aidy Bryant is the 82-year-old grandmother who is getting remarried, and we are having some surprise strippers for her.
Yeah, I call this sketch "Weekend at Grandma's" because basically, you know, we're just doing Weekend at Bernie's with a mostly female cast this time around.
Mm-hmm.
I thought this was fine. I mean, I think the thing that I enjoyed about this, the two things I would say this, the two things that I really liked about this sketch is one, that they did it, that this existed, and that they were willing to go here. I know, you know, I was talking to Mark about him and Stephanie watching the show. They found it maybe in a little bit poor taste, or just it wasn't for them, I guess I should say. I don't want to speak for him, but it did not. I liked that they went there, and I liked watching Aidy Bryant, the Terry Kaiser, Bernie, actor who played Bernie of this sketch, really get knocked around by Dong and still not break character.
I believe the term is fun sandwich, Rich.
I'm sorry. Yes. Yeah. She was the meat in a fun sandwich. So, you know, even with them spraying Cool Whip into her mouth and having it sucked out by Benedict Cumberbatch, I thought she did a great job. Certainly all the women, I think everyone in the sketch did a great job. It was just one of these almost sort of not gross out sketches, but sort of how far will we go? Because the comedy, once the strippers start, the comedy doesn't necessarily evolve. It doesn't even necessarily heighten. It just sort of, it just lowers. It just continues to get sort of more outrageous. So, you know, I liked it. I don't necessarily know what I would say I made of it.
I would say I was on board and I was waiting for it to go somewhere, Rich. And I have to say that to the dismay of many of our listeners, I thought that it really took a turn for the worse when the Chicago Cubs showed up. Because now, like, wait, what? That you were our 1000th lap dance, so now the Chicago Cubs are here, and the Chicago Cubs are giving lap dances to an 80-year-old woman? Why?
Yeah, this was a strange. My suspicion is that there was a different end that didn't work. We already had the Cubs booked for Weekend Update, and they maybe even wanted to do more, and they sort of threw this out at them. But interesting that they threw it out as a way to sort of give a false ending to the sketch. And then in fact, they still did not have an ending to the sketch. They still, even at the end, it was just them sort of gang banging. I don't even know what to say. It was just sort of like, what is going on here?
Yeah, I don't know. And I thought that it hurt the Chicago Cubs Weekend Update bit. I feel like that would have, we'll get to that. But
of course,
I just was waiting for, that if you have grandma die in the beginning of the sketch, don't you need to have the family members reveal grandma is dead by the end of the sketch?
I would think so. I definitely felt like, well, what are we watching here? Where are we going? And it turned out we weren't going anywhere.
Yeah. So I felt like it was the beginning and the middle, but I have some issues with the ending here on the grandma striptease. All right. So Rich, instead of getting into Solange right now, why don't we go through the rest of the show and we'll play what James had to say about Solange at the end of the show?
Sure. Absolutely.
Okay. All right. So let's get into Weekend Update and our last Weekend Update before the big election, Rich.
All right.
Okay, so lots of stuff going on here. Any biting jokes in your mind?
I did like when they were talking about the emails. Michael Che, I feel like hasn't been connecting for me tonally, but I did like when he's talking about that she should have just, in hindsight, turned over the emails. And he said, given everything Donald Trump has said, and he said like her deleting those emails was like giving up weed for a job interview and then losing out on that job to a crackhead. I thought that was, I really liked that. And I think the other joke that I particularly liked is when they talked about the New York City Marathon and they cut to a picture of Trump and Colin says this gives a great chance to give foreigners the chance to practice running for their lives. I thought that was really good. So a couple of good jokes, couple of good runs. Again, I would say sort of nothing special.
What about the joint piece between Colin and Michael talking about trying to pep everybody up before the election?
Yeah, it was good. I mean, I don't think there were many bad jokes here. I don't know that there were any other jokes that I thought were hilarious or super insightful, but it was generally good.
Okay. Well, then, Rich, let's talk about Dana Carvey coming back to or I don't know if he's ever been to the Update Desk as the church lady. Dana Carvey had a lengthy interview with Howard Stern this week. Did you happen to listen to that, Rich?
I did not get to hear it. I was wondering how much SNL stuff was going to be in it. I was bummed I didn't get to hear it. Oh, okay.
Yeah, definitely check that out. All right, so here's Church Lady. I'm very excited. Church Lady here to talk about the election. Church Lady starts off talking about, who you going to vote for, has, a good line about Trump and Hillary. And then that was kind of it about the election for the Church Lady.
Yeah, I mean, the thing to remember is that as much as, as I loved the church lady back in the day, and I probably burnt out on the church lady back in the day. We just saw the church lady last May. It was the cold open of the Brie Larson episode in May where he came back and did church lady. And I am an unabashed Dana Carvey worshiper. It was not funny. It was not, I shouldn't say it wasn't funny. That's not fair. It was not that funny. It was not great. And I think I assumed that the takeaway to SNL was, oh, it's interesting that Church Lady worked so well in the 90s, and for reasons that we could always dissect as comedy nerds, it really doesn't seem to work in the 2015s. So here's she back again, and I was disappointed from the minute I saw her. I love Dana Carvey. I want to see grumpy old man be a Trump supporter. That's what I mean. There's so much we can do with Dana Carvey. Church Lady, they rely too much on is he going to say, isn't that special? Isn't that special? And then when he does, well, who cares? It wasn't anything all that interesting. The Satan thing sort of didn't pay off for me. So he is still a great performer. I think he was here sort of promoting the fact that he has a new stand-up special on Netflix. I can't wait to watch it. I love Dana Carvey. I've seen him live do stand-up comedy back back in the 90s. It was just great. But I don't think any of the jokes here were strong enough to overcome a character that kind of isn't really relevant anymore.
Yeah, I thought that it was funny when Church Lady first says, accuses Colin Jost that he's gay, and then it got probably a bigger laugh from the audience when Colin says to the audience, "Why are you laughing at that?" But then I felt like the Church Lady was really spending a lot of time on talking about gay stuff, and takes a shot at West Hollywood also. It just seemed like, oh, okay, so here's the Church Lady to talk about the election, and we really didn't do that. And then the musical number I thought was so odd. It was Church Lady singing "What a Wonderful World" with just like pictures and not even like jokes attached to the pictures.
Yeah, the pictures didn't align with what he was saying in a specific way that you could see a payoff. I actually went back and thought, did I miss something? Because it didn't make any sense to me. I agree.
Yeah. So
tough one for me. I still love Dana Carvey, but this one I don't think it worked.
It just seemed like, okay, we had a good opportunity for, there's so much. I mean, maybe SNL just felt like they've traveled all that ground, but I felt like that there was a lot of stuff that the Church Lady could have gotten on Trump for, Hillary Clinton, Bill Clinton. I feel like that there was, plenty of material there. I just don't know why they were sort of like meandering.
It was not great.
Okay, so then we got the winners of the SNL Voice Contest. Rich, what a confusing setup this was for the Chicago Cubs and Bill Murray to sing the Cubs theme song. I don't know what the name of it is.
If I had tried to put a Venn diagram of the premise of this sketch on the back white wall, it would look like Me in a Beautiful Mind. It was so convoluted to get there. And then again, I think, Johnny talked about this on Twitter last night. This is my rule of cameos. Nobody cares that you're there because we already know that you're there. So now we have this thinly veiled excuse to bring out people we already know are in the building. There's no payoff. There's no surprise to this. This was completely undercut by the grandma sketch. So we're just watching great baseball players taking a victory lap by singing out of tune. It was always fun to see Bill Murray because, again, I worship Bill Murray, and we know that he's a huge Cubs fan, as we all, saw many, many times this week. But it felt like, what is this waste of time? It just felt like, I don't know why we're watching this.
I mean, could we have just revealed Bill Murray and then had the Cubs come out with him as opposed to revealing the people we already saw and then Bill Murray?
And I think you got to do so. I mean, you can have Bill Murray himself come out to just sing a Cubs song if you want, but if you're going to have the baseball players come out again, we have to give them something to do that has a comedic value. The song itself was not comedic value. I don't really know, what it was. And hey, if you just want to sort of do a victory lap for, the Chicago, writers and cast members, that's fine. But this was so convoluted.
And congratulations once again to the Chicago Cubs. That everybody's happy. Everybody's happy for the Cubs. Nobody's trying to take anything away from the Cubs and their great World Series victory.
Yes, and I assume that if you saw the backup singers,
I don't get hate mail from the Cubs fans.
Oh yeah, I have nothing against the Cubs, and I had nothing against the Cubs being in the grandma sketch. It's great pop culture, really fun. They're making fun of themselves, all that stuff. I did notice as I said, the voice contest backup singers that came out were SNL staffers, I assume from Chicago. All the way to the camera left was fantastic SNL writer Katie Rich, who got who is a Chicago native, so got to come out and sang "Go Cubs Go" with.
I was going to ask you, who the hell were those people?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they were all just SNL staffers who are huge Cubs fans. I know Katie is from Chicago and a big Cubs fan, so I'm sure that was a big part of it.
Okay, Rich. So let's go and talk about our post-update sketch. Which do we have a name for this one, Rich?
I think on Hulu they called it Ricky and Gemma.
Ricky and Gemma. Okay, no mention of Gene and his wife.
No, no.
Okay, here they are. Rich, is this the third time that we're getting this sketch?
This is the third time we first, this was a great Dwayne Johnson sketch in 2015, and then we all sort of inexplicably saw it reprised with Louis C.K. last year. With Cecily Strong playing Gemma in all three outings,
Yes.
and here we are doing it for the third time, very inexplicably. This time with Ricky Diamonds, the rock and roll illusionist.
Yeah, so I love this sketch, the first time. And I think that if I recall our conversations, I think I liked it a lot more than you did the second time. But even the third time, I was excited to see this, but I did not feel like that this had the hilarity of the prior outings for this sketch.
Yeah, I think that they were in a weird line of if you've seen it already, you kind of know what's coming. But if you haven't seen it already, you don't quite understand. Like there's no logic to it. It's just this bizarre thing. Again, Cecily Strong, I think, is always the highlight of this sketch as Gemma. I like that, she always has a song. This song was bizarre. But then, and I did like that we didn't completely Mad Libs. We didn't end with it, them ordering a large amount of shrimp. And
I missed it. I missed that.
I was waiting for Vanessa to have to once again eat a lot of shrimp cocktail. So I like that they sort of had the fortitude to say let's do something different. But I will say I don't think that the magic trick with the cards in the mouth and the gun, I think that went on for went pretty too long for me. I thought that was a little hard.
It got dark.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so also it's always that, Keenan always ends up getting in trouble with Vanessa also for being too interested in what Gemma is doing.
Yes, I did like her use of her British accent this time around, just to being a GPS voice, just recalculating. That was very cute.
Yeah. I want to go back and watch the Dwayne Johnson one of that again after we get off today. Okay, Rich, let's talk about the evil supervillain Cumberbatch here, who has basically is like the Riddler, and I thought we were getting set up for the return of MacGruber. I started to get a little excited.
Yeah. Oh boy. Oh boy. Is sometimes SNL, they should just call it at an hour. And you know what? We're good. We're gonna wrap it up and go home. This was a tough one. This was tough for a lot of reasons. I mean, I liked a premise that is in these classic convoluted Bond or other thriller movie, scenarios. Why does the bad guy have to be so complicated? Like, why does he need the riddle? So, okay, I'm on board for the premise. But we didn't really explore the premise of, well, okay, great. Let's find out why comedically. Let's do this. Instead, we just sort of continued to watch him get flummoxed as he would come up with riddles, and his prey would actually solve the riddles. Now, one of the big problems for me is that half the time I couldn't understand what the riddles were because he was talking so fast with a specific tonality that I was like, what did he say? So then when Beck Bennett would say dozens, it was blah, 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 blah. I was like, oh, okay. I didn't understand what the riddle was. So that it didn't have a big payoff until maybe the end where it was just a bunch of stuff that I've heard before. So I liked the idea of this, but I felt like this needed a full rebaking of sort of like, no, if you're going to do it, let's actually find out more about this guy and why he is compelled to come up with these riddles.
I thought it was also a distraction where Kyle Mooney was like suggesting other things or like bringing up other topics and tangents of conversation to sort of distract away from what was going on. So we sort of had this question about the riddles and why are we doing this? But then Kyle Mooney kept trying to change the subject and I didn't know what the scene was ultimately supposed to be about.
I agree. I mean, you end up with two unusual things in a scene, which is always, the cleanest is always there's one unusual thing that we can then follow as it heightens, and we try to understand the why behind the action. And this definitely made it more confusing. I'm like, are we supposed to think Kyle's weird or Benedict is weird? Because they were both weird, but weird in different ways. So it made it tough.
All right. Well, let's talk about the 12:55 sketch, the meeting with Mr. Sharp. Rich, what was your take on the men from Mercy General coming to get some money from Mr. Sharp?
Shaw, I think Mr. Shaw.
Oh, Shaw.
Wasn't it?
I apologize.
Shaw. Yeah.
All due respect to Mr. Shaw.
Well, it's funny. I had a little bonding because no one in the sketch except Benedict could hear Mr. Shaw speaking, but from home I could hear Mr. Shaw speaking. I heard the Raven saying, "Oh boy, oh boy, oh."
I believe it was an eagle, Rich.
An eagle. Okay, all right. Well, I stand corrected.
Now we're even.
Here's what I'll say. I mean, woof. Oof. I'd rather they take this swing at 12:50 at night than just phone in some lazy, or nothing's lazy, but phone in some predictable rehash of a sketch we've seen 8 times. And good for Benedict. I don't think this went over particularly well in the audience, the studio audience. And Benedict, he just kept doubling down, and he sort of delivered at a 10 all the way through to the end. I thought this was tough, man. This was tough.
You know what? I was enjoying this, Rich. I thought it was fun. I liked that there were some good jokes in there. I liked when they went to all of the pictures on the desk. And we got to Nelson Mandela and Howie Mandela.
Yeah, that was cute. Definitely.
Salmon Rushdie, one salmon he couldn't get. I mean, I thought what was fun about it, I guess because it was so absurd, was that just like playing along with the idea of that he was this big executive or whatever, but also was actually an eagle, where they talked about how it's very odd for him to talk about money, because he's on it. I thought it was like, okay, I was interested enough to like, where is this going?
Yeah, I think for me with this mist, and on Twitter, Mark C tweeted out a great article from Vulture about why the David F. Pumpkin sketch was just so well done. And one of the things they talked about, and we talk about it here a lot, is how important the straight man is in a sketch, and how important the writing of the normal one is. And I think if you had this sketch, but you had amped up Kenan and Beck to the level of straight manning the way that they had straight manned the David Pumpkin sketch, instead of just saying, is this a joke? If they really hunkered down on like, so wait, do you think the eagle do you think the eagle's talking to you? Like really hunkered down on, so is it a guy with an eagle head, or is it an eagle with a man body? And really, really hit the straight man like 50% more or even more. I think this could have been a really fun sketch, but I think because they were both just incredulous looking, it didn't really give us the great reactions that I think would have made us all go, okay, we are truly with Beck and Kenan in the room, their characters in the room with them. Then I could have had a lot more fun with this.
That's interesting in the writing of that, because that in the premise for this, it was that the two men coming to get the money, it was almost like that this was a tough meeting to get. So there was like they had a lot to lose by acting incredulous. Whereas had they just been sort of like collecting door to door, maybe then you could have had it where there was no stakes for them, that they, that this was just like easy come, easy go. But because this was like such a big meeting for them, then they didn't want to do anything to blow it.
Could be, yeah, could be. I mean, I would even say, I think even with the stakes being high, to again just play this more real. Even if this is the most important meeting you're taking, you're talking to a mannequin with an eagle's head. Play that reality 50% more, and knowing that you still have to convince the lunatic assistant to somehow, like, they didn't even really sort of delve into, so who's actually like, we don't actually think this is a real person. So what is going on here? I just think we missed a lot of opportunity to have more fun with it. Now, that said, if I had a medical marijuana card, which I do not have, I might have thought this was the funniest sketch of the night. And maybe that's what I'm missing.
All right. Well, Rich, maybe after Tuesday's Proposition 64, maybe you might.
Maybe we won't even need cards. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So we'll see if Rich is loving every sketch by next weekend.
Yeah.
All right. Let's go into checking in with what James Keats had to say about Solange. Did you know that Solange is actually related to Beyonce, Rich?
What?
Yes. That a lot of people don't know this, that Solange is actually Beyonce's sister, Beyonce Knowles.
Yeah. Did you see there was a lot of coverage that Beyonce and Jay-Z were there in Studio 8H for Solange's performance. They took a couple of photos for their Facebook, I don't know what. And then they were all at the after party. Leslie Jones was posting photos of her with Beyonce and Jay-Z. So Solange was supported by the family.
That's nice. That's nice. All right. Here's what James Keats had to say about the musical works of Solange.
Thanks, Robin Rich. Reporting in on Solange Knowles gracing the Saturday Night Live stage for the first time. She, of course, has a new record just out about a month ago called A Seat at the Table. One of the best albums of the year in many critics' opinion, including mine.
Wow.
And so she performed two songs off the new record, starting with Cranes in the Sky. A real Sade, Diana Ross, early 70s kind of vibe. Even a little space jazz via Sun Ra or Alice Coltrane in terms of the visuals. I thought the set design was really beautiful. The band, all in white, were very sleek, and it was a very smooth, compelling performance of her sort of pop jazz hit, a minor hit off of her new record. Yeah, I thought it was just terrific. Came back for the second song with Don't Touch My Hair, which has been lauded as a kind of an empowerment anthem from Solange, and a really interesting cornerstone of her new record, which is dealing with a lot of themes of identity and Black Lives Matter, very much a kind of sister album to her sister, Beyonce, and Lemonade. So if you're a fan of Lemonade, you might want to check out A Seat at the Table. Very sort of a quieter vibe, but very similar thematically, and it's Solange's best work by far. So if you haven't checked her out as an artist before, then give this album a try. As I said, the second song, Don't Touch My Hair, again, a similar vibe, very kind of smooth jazz, soul. Sampha, who's a rising British singer-songwriter and producer, came out to sing with her as well. That's who that guy was, and of course Beyonce was backstage with her mom and posted an Instagram photo of the two of them lifting Solange up in celebration, which they posted they had been doing since she was 10. So very successful night from Solange, and looking forward to a reunited Tribe Called Quest coming up, I guess next week or in a couple of weeks. I can't remember. I think it's next week. So
James.
I will talk to you then. Sorry, I can't make it live this week. Go Raptors.
Go
Thanks.
Raptors. James is too busy watching basketball, Rich.
James had mentioned that this was potentially the album of the year. So I did my homework. I listened on Apple Music, during the week. And this is so far out of my wheelhouse. It was not for me, but which is by no means a dig at all. It's just not for me. I'm not the target audience, and I respect that. So watching Solange, I'm so excited to hear that fans liked it. At one point we did mute it to sort of comment on it. Watching her performance muted for me felt like a cross between someone making fun of a Beyonce performance and the SNL sketch Woodbridge High School Student Theater Showcase. At one point, I think it looked like she was just doing yoga instead of singing in the middle of the second song. So I will say it was firmly not for me, but I'm glad that those who like it like it.
Rich, this is crazy. I like Solange more than Beyonce.
Wow.
Yeah.
Don't let Beyonce know that. You're in trouble.
She'll shut it right down. All right,
Yeah.
let's get into the questions from our listeners about this week's SNL. Scott St. Pierre has curated a number of questions from you guys. Mike Bloom also, how much do you think that the church lady segment on Update was improvised? Rich, I can't imagine it was very improvised, considering that we had a musical number and we had pictures up during the musical number. Even if the pictures didn't match what the church lady was singing about, I don't think it could have been very improvised.
Yeah, I think probably not much at all. I think that the Isn't It Special was a cut to specific camera. The anytime she says Isn't It Satan, they have to ramp up the echo effect. So I think that this was probably probably sort of planned. I don't think Church Lady is traditionally that improvised. So I would say probably not.
No, I don't think so. Okay. Stephanie wants to know, what other segments could they have done regarding the Cubs? I would love to have seen a Steve Bartman segment. So do you have any ideas, Rich, for other Cubs sketches?
You are asking the wrong guy about other Cubs sketches. That seems like a long shot. I will say it was weird that there wasn't even, I don't think there was a single joke about the Cubs winning the series in Weekend Update. So it was a weird, you had the Chris Christie big story, which was a very big story, admittedly late in the week. And you had Bobby Moynihan. We didn't see him at the update desk. We didn't have any Cubs jokes. It was weird for me. It was a weird sort of play out of what they covered and didn't cover.
Yeah, and then there's been so much talk about people that had older people that got to see the Cubs win the World Series. So it's just weird again that we have this older woman dying in a sketch with the Cubs. It's a little bit. It was just so off-putting when they have the Cubs in the sketch with the dead woman. All right, Luke wants to know. I haven't seen the episode yet. Was BC the problem as the host? What do you lay the issues with this episode at the feet of Cumberbatch, Rich?
This is always so hard to say because as a performer, definitely not. I thought he did a very good job. I thought he was very willing to make fun of himself. He was very willing to be silly, but he didn't seem to need to be silly. He was willing to really sort of rein it back. I thought the office hours pre-tape piece, which I did not think was particularly funny, I still think he did an excellent job. So I thought that was really funny. I don't think so. Although you never know as far as sketch selection, how much the host really affects, I think the hosts do affect sketch selection, but you do always wonder when a night is particularly rough, was it in any way a factor of what the host wanted to do, what the host was pushing for, what the host didn't like? That's one of those we'll just never know.
Yeah, I don't think that there's any issue with Cumberbatch's host. I think he would be a fine person to come back. He seemed like he was very much in the spirit of doing whatever was asked of him.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, no, he seemed like he was a real team player.
Okay. Let's go to Adam, who says, if the Indians won the World Series, would Drew Carey have been on Weekend Update with 3 Cleveland players singing Cleveland Rocks? No, right?
I don't think most of the audience would know who Drew Carey is. And I would have been very upset to hear Cleveland Rocks because I was very upset when Cleveland Rocks became the Drew Carey theme song, replacing Moon Over Parma, which was my favorite little ditty in the first few seasons of the Drew Carey show.
Wow, Rich, I didn't know you were such a Drew Carey completist.
The Drew Carey show, the first 5 or 6 seasons was a very, very funny show.
Okay. This is from Ike Moore, who wants to know, how do you think that Lorne was able to get Dave next week? Do you think that we'll have another Black Jeopardy sketch so soon after Hanks? Well, I would suspect no on Black Jeopardy, because I feel like that traditionally, I feel like that the third person, that third slot, is somebody unusual, where it's not just that you wouldn't slot in typically somebody that you. It's more of casting somebody against type for that third part.
I mean, Drake was the only time we've had an African American as the third. It's always been a white person as the third guest on Black Jeopardy. And I don't know that Dave Chappelle would wanted. I think Dave Chappelle would do that sketch if it had not recently been done. I think Dave is probably not going to want to do sort of the predictable thing. So I think we'll see a lot of stuff mixed up.
Okay. And then last question from Mike Bloom. In the effort to make you guys hyperbolic, was this the worst episode of the past couple of years not hosted by Donald Trump? I don't think so.
No, I don't think so. I mean, I think it was the weakest episode of the year. I will say the fact that this was the weakest episode of the year is a good sign for how the year is going.
Yeah. I think there were 5 worse episodes than this last season.
Oh, yeah. I mean, 2 words, Russell Crowe.
Okay. Yeah. This one might not have worked for everybody, but I don't think that this was a disaster by any stretch of the imagination. We've had higher highs this season, but no, I think that Mike Bloom being very hyperbolic.
Yeah, I probably am closer. To me, it was pretty definitively the weakest of the season for me. But yes, I'd say hyperbolic to say that one of the worst in a period of time. Certainly there were a lot of things to like about it.
Would you say this was a very bad episode of SNL?
No, I wouldn't say it was very bad. I would say overall for me, at 1 a.m., Jen and I turned off the TV, not triumphantly, but like, yeah, okay, that happened.
Subpar.
Yeah, I was like, okay. I mean, there have been a number of episodes. The Tom Hanks, we're turning off the TV, just full of energy, more awake than we were 90 minutes earlier. This was not the case.
Okay, yeah, I thought this was an average episode of the show. Definitely some high points, but obviously Mike Bloom was very sour about the whole thing.
And and if you had said to me, you're going to have the star of one of your favorite shows, Sherlock, with Dana Carvey and Bill Murray show up, as well as cameos from the team that just won the World Series, my expectations would have been 100 times higher than what this was. So I understand where Mike is coming from.
All right. Well, fun stuff. Next Sunday, we'll be back to talk about Dave Chappelle and A Tribe Called Quest. James Keast should be back with us for that show. So very much looking forward to getting back together. And then, Rich, how many weeks off do you suspect following that episode? Do you think that are we off through Thanksgiving on the SNL podcast?
No, my suspicion is that we would be back for one more week.
On the 19th.
Yeah, I think we will be back. The 19th will be the Thanksgiving episode, and then we will be off for Thanksgiving.
Because I just feel like that maybe heading into the spring, I think we have a lot of shows in the can. I think since SNL has come back, they've only taken 1 week off.
Correct. We did an unprecedented 4 episodes in a row. I think we'll now do 3 episodes in a row. One thing I think we could see is I could very likely see a 2-week break for Thanksgiving, not a 1-week break. They have done that. That would not be unprecedented. And I think depending on how the election goes, I think, to be honest, if Trump wins, I think it's a 1-week break because there's just going to be so much going on. If Hillary wins, I think there's a good chance we'll do a 2-week break so everyone can kind of regroup and come back for the Christmas.
Let me just ask you, as the polls have tightened here over the last couple of weeks, we sort of jokingly were talking about when it seemed more like an upset if Trump were to win. What do you think happens with Alec Baldwin if Trump should become the president on Tuesday?
I think pending any other production stuff, if he may have already booked himself into a movie or TV show, I think that he becomes the Trump. I think he becomes the the Trump character for the season. I don't think you would see him in every cold open. I think that even if they wanted to, logistically, you'd have to dial it back. And on weeks that there were bigger news stories, you might go weeks without seeing him as Donald Trump. But I think he would just play it out for the year. Would he go into next year? Probably not. I think you're definitely going to see him as Donald Trump through till the end of the Christmas break. And then after that, we'll see. But if he were to win, I think you'd see him for the, in the second half of the season.
And then it's something that we have to figure out over the summer break to figure out what goes on with the Trump impression.
At that point, yeah. At that point, I think
if SNL's allowed to stay on the air.
That's true. That depends on if there's a
Don't think
special
you can shut
commission appointed. At that point, I think you go to a Anthony Armanac. I know I'm messing up his name. Great comedian who does a fantastic Trump impression. At that point, if you know you have 3 3/4 years of President Trump, I think you just go out and get a featured player who's known for their Trump impression.
Okay. All right. So we will see. We will know so much more 1 week, or hopefully will. 1 week from today, we might be standing here in gridlock, Rich.
Don't even joke. I can't even process that.
All right, but what a weekend update we would have to talk about next week. All right, Rich.
Yes.
So thanks so much to Scott St. Pierre getting everything set up for our live show here with you guys on our YouTube channel. Also editing the podcast, all things behind the scenes. Thanks so much, Scott St. Pierre. Follow Rich on Twitter. He is at Rich Tack. I am at Rob Cesarino. Everybody, make sure you go vote this week.
We can't tell you on this podcast who to vote for. We can only ask that you vote.
Yes. All right. Have a good one, everybody. Take care. Looking forward to hearing what you have to say in the comments. Take care. Bye.
Bye-bye.